Captain's Log, Episode 64. This week's episode of the Beer Vengers podcast is sponsored by the Beer and Cheese Collective, located at 35-11 Ditmars Boulevard in Astoria, Queens. Enjoy their eclectic array of craft beer, artisanal cheeses, and specialty grocery items at the Beer and Cheese Collective. On this week's Six Pour Beer Cast, Captain of the Beer Wonder welcomed back guest Beer Venger Globehopper for an unprecedented dive into the world of mass-produced adult beverages, as well as a return to some favorites. Somewhere in there is a week in beer, as well as another visit to Globehopper's home brewery. Remember to like, star, and subscribe whenever that feels appropriate. And send us your emails at thebeervengers@gmail.com if you have any questions, suggestions, or if you just like hearing us talk about you on the show. And now, without further ado, please enjoy episode 64, Macromania.
Well, we're the beer Vengers, beer Vengers, beer Vengers.
We're the Beer Vengers.
Welcome to the Beercast, everyone. Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Astoria, Queens, I am Captain Porter Brownstout.
And coming to you from an undisclosed location in the County of Kings, it is I, the Beer Wonder.
And coming to you from an undisclosed location in the borough of Brooklyn, it is I, the Globehopper.
And we are Beer
That was some ASMR right there. Like, people are going to listen to that and they're going to get that tingly feeling in the back of their heads.
Yeah.
Like
It wasn't really fully synced up, but I think that we got some bits and pieces of it. And it was. It's ASMR, a little bit of new. Anyway, enough self-flagellating commentary. Welcome to the Beercast, everyone. It's great to have all of you here. It's great to have us here. It's great to have the Globehopper back in the house again.
Thank you.
Very happy.
Just hopping on by like you do sometimes, you know.
That's why they call him the Globehopper. Yeah. We've as we mentioned on the last episode, we've been taking a little bit of a scattershot release schedule this summer, just because getting a little busy. And I know I may have mentioned last time that I'm having a little harder time finding some really interesting beers, but I have to tell you, we all found some really good ones that we couldn't wait any longer to put on the show. We've been doing this for almost 2 years. Can you believe that, Beer Wonder?
It's utterly shocking to me. And the thing is, it is a testament to the beer world out there that we have not yet run out of unique, excellent, wonderful craft beers. It really shows that the scene continues to expand.
Yeah, we are. We really are committed to unique local craft beer scene, and I'm just really excited to dive into what we have here today. He's been here often enough that I almost feel like he's the closest thing we have to a guest since he's not here every week. So, do you suppose that we should let the Globehopper go first?
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
All right.
I mean,
seems polite.
It would only be polite.
It's naturally. See, he knows. He understands. He understands how this works. Yeah.
I wanted to try some. I am the Globehopper, so I have to bring something international. This one is, I'm going to call it a hybrid international, but it is international. This is a very big can.
It's very large. I don't think I've seen a can that big ever.
I think you only get a can this big when you get a can of oil back in the 50s.
Yeah, right. I was suddenly having flashbacks to Wizard of Oz when they first meet the Tin Man. Oil can. Can.
This is just a classic lager.
Okay.
It is it is celebrated worldwide, and it is just a classic Foster's.
Oh, Foster's.
Foster's.
Does that mean anything?
Foster's?
Yeah.
Now the logo has the big F and the O on it, so it's making me think maybe we need to really emphasize like the O. I'm not 100% sure.
Maybe it's Foster's.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense.
With.
Okay, Foster's. Yeah. Okay. Oh my
Right.
goodness. Wow. That
Very
was,
nice
I mean, it's a
crack,
big
yeah.
can with a big crack. I'll say that much. Yeah. Oh, this one's going to be hard to pour.
I know. I need a big glass for this one. Let's see.
I know. Yeah. That's very important.
Big can, well, you don't have to fit it all into the glass.
Yeah. There's a lot happening there. Oh, very golden.
Oh, geez.
Very
wow.
healthy head.
Firing off.
Yeah. It's just jumping out of that can. Oh my goodness. Very intense head. Well, that's a big can. It's hard to pour something that large.
Big can, big head, big
But
pause
very
to let it all
light.
subside.
Pretty much see-through, which is good. But yeah, that
really
nice light straw color.
Yep. Pillowy head. Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. This one is intriguing.
Yeah.
All right.
Foasters.
Beer Wonder, I want to see what you brought.
Okay, well, so here's the thing. I mean, that was a very large can, Globe Hopper, and I must say, my can it doesn't have the girth that your can does, but it does have the height. It's a little bit taller. Okay, it is a unique style of can that I believe is referred to as a tall boy. Okay, now we haven't.
Yes, I've heard
we
that.
We've had a lot of pint glasses. We've had a lot of shorties, but I don't know that we've had a tall boy specifically. Now, this can is specifically known for its can art. It is very green. It has a very traditional, like, kind of Polish, and I think it's not Polish. It's like a Czech symbol on the front here. See the floweriness there.
Mhm.
There's sort of like a wheat element here, and you can see some hop binds on it, and it does have an A and a B on it in sort of a historic font, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now this is a specifically flavored version of it. It is it's a lime version of this unique beer, and it is specifically in very large letters on the can. It does let us know that it is brewed with lime peels.
Oh, lime peels.
Yeah, so I assume that they're artisanally
so it's
grown.
natural.
Very natural, yep. I understand that there is some rice in this one, which is going to give it a lightness to it. In fact, lightness is right in its name. I believe it is pronounced Bood Light Lime.
Bood Light Lime.
Bood
Interesting.
Do we think I said that right?
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, it does look right. Okay, well, I'm going to see how this one goes. Okay, here we go.
Oh, nice crack. Yeah.
I know. Very, very delicate for a can this size. My goodness. Okay, here we go. Okay. I can really
very frothy.
Very frothy. I can smell the lime already. Oh gosh, I mean, it may be as clear as the one you had, Globe Hopper. I mean, I feel like it's a very, very see-through beer, but I can really smell it. I can smell the maltiness already, but I also have got some lime jumping out at me. It's going to be really interesting. I'm really excited about this one.
Excellent.
All right. Well, Captain, what have you brought us?
Well, this is it's from a Wisconsin brewery. Dates back to the mid 19th century.
Okay.
It's got a really interesting logo there. It's got a sort of a blue and white sort of thing, as if it's an award-winning beer. It's maybe has won awards, but it's like there's an award right there on the can. And apparently, it's a new strain of this beer.
Wow.
Coming in at a 6.5% ABV.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
This is what we call our Pabst Blue Ribbon Extra.
Ooh. Extra. Ooh, fancy.
So usually it has a white can, but this is a black can. I think the extra is the 6.5% ABV. There's no real indication on the label as to how they got there, but it is a 6.5% ABV. So let's just open that.
Well, I mean, it's
also a tall boy, I should say, which you can see next to the can.
Yeah, it is exciting to have an award-winning beer on our little podcast here, isn't it?
Always.
All right, there we go.
Ooh, also very light in color. It's a light-colored day for all of us, it seems.
Yes.
Okay. Wow, I'm excited to hear about this award-winning beer.
All right, well, I think it's time for all of us to raise a glass. Cheers, Beer Avengers.
Cheers.
That's interesting. I mean, it does taste like what I think of as a sort of a, I believe this is a lager. It does not specifically say on the can, but I believe this is a lager, and it tastes like kind of a classic lager.
I mean, this is when they say light lager, they're not kidding.
Yeah.
It's very light. It's It's very light. I mean, I feel like you could drink this entire tall boy, and it would almost be hydrating.
Yeah, that's it does remind me of the old Monty Python joke. Actually, this one is a little less light in taste, but as far as what you're referring to, I think we talked about this on one of our early episodes. The whole Monty Python joke about American beer.
No.
Oh, it's an awful lot like making love in a canoe. It's fucking close to water.
Ah, okay, yeah. Well, this is very gentle. I mean, it does have a distinct lime flavor. I definitely do get that artisanal lime feel to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so light. It's just incredible. I don't know that I've had many beers that have been this light. Globe Hopper, how is the Foster's?
The Foster's is great. So it's very light. There is a slight sweetness to it, which is kind of nice. And then there's even a mild citrusiness on the finish.
Oh,
which is kind of, it's quaffable. I know.
Okay,
like to say
quaffable.
Here, and crushable as well. I have to check on the ABV on this one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. You would think with this can it would be easy to.
I know.
Find.
One would. Well, mine is 4.2 while you're checking, just to clarify the Bud Light lime. For such a large can, it's surprising that it is so hard to find your ABV.
It is.
Wait. No, I don't see it.
All right, we may have to go to Google for this.
We'll do some research.
Yes, exactly. Well, when you get such rarefied beers like we have today, it can be difficult sometimes to get a good statistic without doing a little extra research.
So, as you have no doubt surmised listening to so far, this is our macro show. This was. I feel like you were. This is something that you. I know Huck will be very disappointed he wasn't here for this one. So
no, he won't.
I think the next time he's on, I think he should certainly be encouraged to, if he wants to have, if he wants to bring one of those as either his first or second pour, he's welcome to. But yeah, we this was something that you've been pushing for a while, Beer Wonder. So what made you think this would be a good idea for an episode?
So, I mean, first, we like to talk a lot about, the rarefied world of craft beer. But for many people, the first beers that a lot of us encounter are these larger mass produced things. And they could be a Foster's, it could be a Bud Light Lime, it could be a PBR or Pabst Blue Ribbon. And so I thought it was important to kind of recognize some of the big mass-produced beers, and as people who have been learning about beer and enjoying more complicated and complex beers than these are, I think it's sort of interesting for us to take a step back and get to remind ourselves about what these big macro brews can do. Because I'll be honest, sometimes I want my triple IPA with 4 different kinds of hops that comes in at 11%, but every once in a while I just need a Bud Light Lime. They serve their place. And so I wanted to give them the due that they require on our little show here.
Well, I think I'm going to say I can't think of a situation where I would need a PBR extra, but I would certainly not turn up my nose at it. I mean, we talked at some point that it would be a good idea to bring beers that maybe were cheap beers we had when we were younger. I'm old enough that most of those don't exist anymore. I mentioned that this was from Wisconsin. It does say when I mentioned that it was a PBR was apparently established in Milwaukee in 1844. Mm-hmm. And although my dad just turned 81, he's not quite that old, but it was a beer of his childhood. And I remember at one point him teaching me when I was a kid. He said, what? Ask any person of my generation. Just say, what do you have? And they'll immediately respond, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Oh, wow.
Because they had a very popular jingle in their commercials. What do you have? Pabst Blue Ribbon. What do you have? Pabst Blue Ribbon. It didn't go. There's not many more lyrics in that. I think, what do you have? Pabst Blue Ribbon. Pabst Blue Ribbon. Beer. I think it's really that entirely.
That's catchy.
And, it not only is it a hipster beer now, but it's also being embraced, sort of celebrated by some establishments will have a happy hour specifically with Pabst Blue Ribbon on special. because they can sell it really, really cheap. And it's not just those things where it's not even a bait and switch. You know how some bars will have select drafts for happy hour, and they'll all be there'll be a place that has some really good beer, but all the select drafts, they will only select the macros. It'll be like Bud Light, and maybe Rolling Rock or Yingling, something like that. There's like a number of things where that's what it's going to be. But I see places like specifically like dollar PBR for happy hour.
Which, I mean, if that's the experience that you're looking for, that's not terrible.
I remember my dad taking me to a Smash Burger in Dayton one time, and he specifically took me there because he wanted to get the dollar PBR.
Well, there you go. So you picked yours for nostalgic reasons. I picked mine because I actually like Bud Light Lime. I feel like I'm one of the 10 people left who actually enjoys it. I find it to be a delicious, refreshing beer to have on a hot day. Globe Hopper, why did you choose the Mysterious Foster's?
So Foster's does actually have, I used to drink this a lot when I couldn't afford a lot of beer, because it is 23.5 ounces of beer for $2 usually.
Oh, wow.
$2 to $3. So I have a lot of long nights with Foster's because it's just, you get one and you that's the only one you need. You don't need more than that.
Yeah.
But it's also, it is officially international, but it's mostly not. But it was originally brewed in Australia. But it was an American brew in Australia in the late 1800s. Little known fact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yes, I know a lot of Australians are very amused by the fact that Americans think it's a popular Australian beer.
It's not. It's mostly brewed in, I think in England now or somewhere. It's in Europe.
Yeah. I went there same year we started the podcast, and I don't think I saw Foster's anywhere, but that's their slogan, where they say, Foster's Australian for beer. It's no, it's not.
It's not.
No. Well, I'm glad that you brought us a little bit of international flavor there. But I was first introduced to Bud Light Lime actually on a tour of the Budweiser factory. I was doing a TheaterWorks tour, for those of you who remember our artistic backgrounds, and we stopped and as a group went in there because, of course, when you go, they have a little soda machine of beers at the very end, and you're supposed to get one, but no one monitors it. So we naturally tried all of them. And Bud Light Lime was the one I kept coming back to. And so I kind of just fell in love with it. It became my little refreshing beer of choice. And when I worked for the museum company I worked for a bit, it became known that it was my preferred beer. So whenever we would have an outing, someone would always buy me a Bud Light Lime. And so I would often find myself toting one home with me. And then it became my thing. And I often joke with people that I will take a good beer any day, but there are just some nights that my little bodega on the corner, they know when I show up that sometimes I'm going to stumble to the back and I'm going to show up with a tall boy of Bud Light Lime. And that's just the kind of day we're having.
I mean, honestly, it's one of those things I didn't even know was still being produced, or if it was easy to find, because I think most of my knowledge of it comes from a fictional character named Stephen Colbert. This is not to be confused with Stephen Colbert, the host of The Late Show, even though they are both played by the same person whose name is Stephen Colbert. You know what I'm talking about. He had a show called The Colbert Reporters, a spinoff from The Daily Show. But he played a fictional version of himself who was still named Stephen Colbert. And I don't know if he got a sponsorship or it seemed like it was a joke or if he actually liked it. But at some point or another, he would often, any excuse he could have to bring Bud Light Lime onto the show.
Well,
there must have been some kind of sponsorship thing, and on some level he might have liked it, but he also was bringing it out because it was amusing.
Yeah, and I'm saying the man's got taste. So
I don't know if the fictional one does or not, but but maybe he does in that realm. I mean, it's there's a lot of things where you really don't want to align yourself with the fictional Stephen Colbert. Kind of a right-wing hack.
That's true. That is very true. That is true. Well,
again, not to be confused with the guy who is there now, who won't even say the former president's name.
Yes. Well, but so my beer came from my local bodega. I paid a whopping $3.49 for it.
Excellent.
That is how much it cost. And I know bodegas are a place where those of us who live in Gotham City often get our beers. So I'm curious, when you're going to your local corner store, bodega, a place where you can get beer, what do you find at your spot? What do you feel like the bodega beer scene is looking like right now for you? And I know we're all in different parts of Gotham.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Globe Hopper, I know you're a little bit more in the center of Brooklyn.
Yeah, so I'm center, a little bit further south. So depends on which bodega I go to.
Oh, okay, we got options.
If I go to one, I can't pronounce anything in that bodega.
Mm.
It's all in, I'm guessing, Russian or Ukrainian.
Interesting.
They're all imports. I can't read any of it, but that's okay. So that one's kind of fun though, because it's kind of a lottery of you don't know what you're going to get. So there's always that option. And then I can just go to our other bodegas, and usually, they have everything. They have your macros, and then they will almost always have Sam Adams of some sort.
Oh.
And usually one of the seasonals and one of the Boston lagers. And then some of them even have Brooklyn Brewery as well. So you can get semi-craft beer-ish, which is kind of nice. So you can also get one or two or a couple. So, which is always the plus side if you don't want a full 6-pack of something.
Yeah, I think singles out of a local corner store are actually a nice element, because you can just if you need one, you just go off and do what you need to do with that single one if you're not looking for a full night of craziness.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Captain?
Yeah,
it's interesting. I don't go to bodegas a lot in my neighborhood. For me, a lot of times it seems like if I'm going to a bodega, it's because I'm in a neighborhood that I don't live in, because there's just so much access. So for me, less a bodega beer, but I'd be thinking more of a grocery store beer. Although I will say that the bodegas in my neighborhood, generally speaking, have some good beer selections. But so do the grocery stores. I would say and the trade fair in my neighborhood is 24 hours. So if I'm going there or the other grocery store these days, it's mostly I'm often going to our sponsor, the Beer and Cheese Collective, and Beer Wonder did want me to, even though we're using our lovely Beer and Cheese Collective glasses here. Beer Wonder wanted me to remind all of you that none of these beers are sponsored pours.
No,
you should not go to Beer and Cheese Collective looking for Pabst Blue Ribbon Extra. But you should go there because there are lots of wonderful beers there. So if I'm not going there and I'm going to the grocery store, more often than not, I'm coming home with a Founder's Porter.
Oh, interesting.
It's one I often will find myself taking to parties. I also sometimes, if I have a bunch of really great beer that I'm saving for a Beer Vengers get together and I want to resist drinking it before anyone comes here, it's a really good one to have there as sort of a buffer to save my other beers to share with my friends. We've gone through the whole discussion of I actually haven't looked up lately to see how Founders is doing and how big the fuck Founders movement is going anymore. But I hope they're starting to learn and actually be better, because if they don't, I may have to find another go-to, and it seems like I could at this point I can always find Founders Porter. So if I just need a 6-pack where I don't have to think too much about what I want, that's what I usually bring home.
That's a reasonable go-to. Yeah. I mean, so in my neighborhood, I have both a bodega and now a grocery store. And this was very exciting when we got the bodega. When we got the grocery store. And when I was going to get my beer, I first went to the grocery store because they have a full wall of beer. And believe it or not, I could not find this beer there, because it is half kind of fancier macros, so you can get Tecate or stuff like that that's a little bit more interesting light stuff, and they had some just cans of Budweiser, but otherwise they had the East ciders in tall boys and stuff like that. Those were your options. Or they had some of the dogfish that come in an individual serving size. and then everything else is craft beer. And so when I wanted to go to this, I actually had to go to the bodega, which also has sort of been flipping the script a little bit, because as I was looking for this, I actually had to go digging for a Bud Light Lime, which kind of hurt my soul because it used to be right there. It used to be the thing I could just like sneak in, grab, and walk out with. But had sort of been overtaken by a lot of things from Threes. The Vliet, their lighter beer, I believe it's a Pilsner. It was like front in charge, and you could get them by the singles there. But usually when I go to a bodega and like I'm in someone else's neighborhood, like you're saying, Captain, and I'm maybe going to a party and I want to bring some beers, oftentimes I find that an easy go-to for me there is Stella.
Okay.
Because I feel like for most people, Stella is sort of that like, I'll just have a Stella beer. You know what I mean? If you're at a bar and you're looking at the thing and you're not 100% sure what's going on there, and you're just like, you know what? I don't want a Bud, but I'll have a Stella. It's like the one step up from maybe something kind of questionable.
Sure, I think a lot of us saw Shock Top the same way for a while.
Yeah, exactly. Or Land Shark.
That's not a good beer. I mean, it's
No,
not even
it's
a good.
not.
It's not even a good bad beer. It's like, but I feel like Stella can be, it's a step above the other macros a little bit.
Why do you say that?
I guess I haven't had one in a long time, but it felt like it was. I mean, it had a more. I don't know. It didn't taste as macro-y as the other ones. I don't even know. At this point, I'm having a hard time describing it. I'm curious with this PBR that I'm having, is that I was looking up some online reviews, and some people were saying it's not bad. It's a little sweet. It has a little chemically thing there. I'm not really tasting the chemically thing, but that's I can't say specifically why I think Stella is. I do think that Heineken is better. And because I feel like there's this another one. In fact, I almost brought that tonight.
Okay.
Because when I was first coming up, that was a beer that it wasn't definitely not a cheap beer, but it was one where when you're 20, let's say one, you're
fair.
It's one of those things that like this is a special treat. This is like I'm gonna buy something a little bit nicer. And so Heineken was that step up, even though like now a lot of other things have left it in the dust. Heineken was like, okay, I'm going to splurge a little. And Stella, I think when it first came out, before we had the choices we have now, might have been in that same category.
I get that. I mean, I met some Stella reps at one point at a get together. It was a weird Brooklyn house party, so we're already in a weird, unique situation in the 20 teens. And so they had sponsored the house party, which again was already kind of confusing. Yeah. But the rep I met basically said that they knew that they viewed themselves as the default beer and they were totally fine with that.
Okay.
And I always felt like that was sort of like, yeah, you do feel like the default beer. That said, like when I now think about a default beer, I'm going to go a little bit more Globehopper's way and like grab a Brooklyn Lager. Right. Mm-hmm. Or a Sam Adams or something as a like, I'm going to be with smart beer people. I should probably, if I'm getting just like a drinking beer, I'm going to show up with a Brooklyn Lager, or I'm going to show up with a Sam Adams, maybe the seasonal just for kicks, to sort of like be in there. Is that when you're sort of just like grabbing a 6-pack to go to a place where you don't know if you're with beer people, Globehopper, is that sort of how you go, or what's your like pick up and go beer?
No, that's usually how I go. Okay. It's because one, you know what to expect with those, but they're nice lagers, but they have a little bit of an oomph to them as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's right on that line of that craft versus macro kind of tottering, which Sam Adams, as we know, even helped establish the line of what a micro and macro brew was, because they kept wanting to up the volume because Sam Adams kept making more and more beer, which is like, they're like, no, it's 2 million. It's fine. But with that, it's still like, you know what to expect. You're going to get the same thing. I mean, it's the same with a Stella. Like You get a Stella anywhere in the world, it's going to taste the same. But yeah, that's kind of with me for like a Boston Lager or a Brooklyn Lager, or a summer ale of either of those is always nice in the warmer months. But yeah, you don't know who you're going to be with. You're not the person bringing the Bud Light, but you're also not the person bringing the
Milwaukee's
4-pack
best.
Yeah. You're not bringing the Colt 45 either. So,
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
It's and that's one thing when you're like trying to make an impression, but also even when you're in some place where you're thinking, well, I'm not I want something that I will like and appreciate, and like, okay, well, I'm not gonna buy the cheapest thing there, but this is good enough, and I'll know what it is. Interesting talking about Brooklyn. I told the story way back at the beginning, but the first place I ever got a Brooklyn beer from was a supermarket. It is in it was I believe the name of the supermarket, was it a Seatown or was it the Met? I don't even know if the Met is even still around, but I think that's what it was. It was right off the Astoria Boulevard stop. It's now a Staples. But I was in that grocery store, and I found a 6-pack of Brooklyn Brown, and I said I want to take this home. And I don't think craft beer was even in our vocabulary, because this was probably 1997, maybe 98.
Wow.
And from that point on, I think there actually was a bodega down the street from me on Steinway Street that had it as well. But for a while, yeah, it was like anytime I would see Brooklyn Brown, I'd get that.
I mean, it's still good. It's still a good beer.
I agree.
I'm still good.
I think it's one of those things where this is one of the things where trends make me mad, because Brown has never been a trendy beer, but I still think that Brooklyn Brown is. I mean, I love their black chocolate stout as well as a few number of others, but Brooklyn Brown has always been a fantastic go-to for me.
Right. And I think that's the thing, is that once these places start to get bigger, we kind of start to write them off, right? Like, I have a long-term sort of love-hate relationship with Goose Island, because I remember them when I went to Chicago and met them before they got all in bed with AB InBev and became this sort of like big thing. But I still think that some of their beers are really excellent, and so it kind of becomes hard to write them off once they get.
I feel like when we have the Beer Ventures events at my place, you're the one who's always saying, "Let's have one of those Goose Island barley wines." Well, I mean, I have them in there. I tell you they're going to be there, but I feel like you're pushing it more than anyone else, and I respect you for that.
Yeah, because I think sometimes, I like, there is that sort of, I feel like I'm often hurt when I find out that one of my favorites has, sold out or something like that. Mm-hmm. So for example, Coney Island, which is a place where I spend a lot of time and have perhaps had some weekend beer things to share, but is partially owned by our friends at Sam Adams. And initially it felt a little bit like, what's going on here? But they're continuing to put out interesting, unique things. And so, like, how do you deal with that idea that your favorite brewery, who was doing all this cute, creative, fun stuff, is now starting to go big and mass-produced and corporate? Like, how does that affect your beer drinking with them?
We've talked about this before, and I'm going to sort of die on this hill if necessary, I don't think pairing with Sam Adams really means selling out. I mean,
I don't
agree.
Within the craft world,
either. Yeah.
Because I think that they seem to have a track record of allowing people to keep their own creativity, like especially, and there's no better example than Dogfish Head. Dogfish Head is as good, if not better, than they've ever been. If anything, their association with Sam Adams has allowed them to have more distribution.
Yeah, well, I know, but I mean, but sort of on the flip side of that, when Goose sells out to AB InBev, like, that taints a lot of people's ideas of, of their beers.
The only way I find that to be especially apt and correct, if that's not just a synonym, is that I feel that the Goose Island you see at bars is always not very good. Like is it the 312 or is it another 3-digit number? There's an IPA that is like a go-to if like it's just basically someone pretending they have craft beer cred, even though they just have an AB Goose Island. And it's not a very good one.
Well, there is a Goose IPA, but there is a 312. Like they have a number of them. Yeah. And I remember their OG IPA was one of my favorites. It was one of the ones that got me into IPA drinking.
Yeah.
And I always joke that I still will find that beer and drink it because also they have the little goose.
It's
thing
cute.
It's adorable, and I want to see the guy like take his hand and like wring a goose's neck while he's drinking, which is sadistic and terrible, but whatever. But like there's always, I think people sort of run that fine line, and part of me's like, get when the getting's good a little bit, my friend, the folks down at Coney Island, they outsource all of their like core beers, but they still produce really good stuff. And I've had some unique, interesting, fun things that have come out of their doors. They're still employing unique, creative, interesting people there. So it's not like they've totally, jumped the ship.
Yeah, Macro in and of itself. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jonathan. Globe Hopper.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, actually, one of my favorite stouts I've had in the past 3 years came from Coney Island.
Mm-hmm.
But they released, it was a half-caked. It was a chocolate cake milk stout that they released in July, which is the worst time to release that kind of beer.
Most definitely.
Only if you're not me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had it a few times and it was amazing and it was delicious, but it tastes like cake batter. But yeah, no, they're still making excellent beers. But I think the flip on that is play a little bit of a devil's advocate, but that's all right.
Sure, I love it. That's why we're here.
Yeah, with that, they have full control. But with Goose Island, if I remember correctly, they sold the recipe. So the recipe actually
that is correct.
Changed. So that's the difference of selling the recipe or selling the name. So, do you send the name for further distribution, like Coney Island, with Dogfish Head, even Sam Adams? Or are you actually selling the actual recipe to someone else like they did with Goose Island? Because I was doing a little research with this. I'll go on a little tangent. Don't worry.
Go for it. I love it.
This 5% beer's hitting me. It's fine.
I love everything about it. Globe Hopper, take us somewhere.
This 6.5 is hitting me too. It's a tall boy, remember.
I know. My oil can, my 23 ounces is coming out.
Oil can.
There you go. But
we need to make that a sound. Anyway, continue, Globe Hopper.
Yes.
No, like Kona Brew Pub or Kona Brew
Right, yeah,
Company.
Kona.
So they are owned by AB InBev as well. A little known fact. A lot of people don't know this. But they are owned actually by their craft beer division. So they have an independent brewers division that helps brew all their beer along with Widmer Brothers, and I believe Goose Island is actually still within that category as well. So it's their craft beer division, but all of the major money, distribution, and everything is then done by AB InBev. But even though their major distribution is happening in California, they are still part of an independent craft brewers guild in Hawaii. So they can do that fun stuff, just like Coney Island. They can, and Dogfish Head, they can do the fun stuff with local fruit, local produce at the small brewery, but all their mass-produced stuff is going to be overseen by AB InBev.
So if I get a beer from Kona in New York, it's AB InBev, but if I go to Hawaii, it's Kona.
If you go to the brew pub in Kona, Hawaii, then yes, it'll be from there.
This all reminds me of a story of it was a great little monologue by Mike Daisey called "How Theater Failed America," and it's just basically about how that so many theaters that have when you get in bed with corporate America and try and do, and he talked about going to a theater where they had this incredibly beautiful lobby. And just like you could want to just move into the lobby and have all that, but if you go down 3 floors, they have this like 100-seat experimental space, and the artistic director said, here we can do whatever we want to. I'm like, is that why you built this whole thing? Because they're down there, and 3 floors up, they're doing a revival of Grease with a 3rd-tier reality star. But in this 99-seat space, we can still do whatever we want. It's I don't know. Is that analogy apt at all? Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
because
it's like they kind of there's a little bit of like prostitution. There's like, we will sell our name so you can sell garbage beer all over the world, as long as in this 500-foot space we can make stuff we're proud of.
Well, I do want to be clear. Kona's beer is I do enjoy Kona's mass-produced stuff too.
I haven't had a lot of it, so I don't mean to pick on Kona specifically.
I'll treat you, Captain. We'll get you some. We'll get you some.
Yeah, I think I have had it. And I don't want but I'm just saying that like that's the sort of the devil's bargain of craft brew getting involved with the macro people. Is it like, okay, at some point will their name mean less because there's so many places where the only beer they've had by that brand is not very good?
I think
I could see how that would be a risk. Yeah. Go ahead, Globe.
No, I was agreeing.
I think it's a fair analysis. But that gets me to something that's kind of interesting, which is that, we've dealt primarily with like American and British macros today. I got my Bud Light Lime. We've got our Foster's, which is technically British, even though they kind of say it's Australian. Yeah. But every country has its own like massive mass-produced beer. And I remember when I was a kid, when we lived on the island of Cyprus, Kio was the light lager that like my dad drank. Like I would go when he would be like, can you run to the store and get me a beer? I, at like 14, would quite literally like run to the like Cypriot bodega and pull a Kio off the shelf and buy it for my dad. And that was just sort of like what they drank. Since you have lived all over the place, Globe Hopper, I'm curious if there are any like non-American mass-produced beers that stick out to you as being either really excellent or kind of terrible.
So I'm going to go with both.
Okay, I love
options. So my time in Asia, I did have snow. If you've ever been in China, snow would be the equivalent of. Also, you may have never heard of this one either, but Sol.
Sol?
Sol, S-O-L,
okay.
Sun. That's it's another Mexican lager. It's the steps down from Corona.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you can only imagine. But it's one of those things that, like, when I lived in Mexico, that's what we grew up with. And that's what you drank. So, like, it's fine. Same within China, it's snow. That's just what it is. But then what we would get a lot of, because Hawaii is exactly halfway between Asia and America, we would get a lot of Sapporo and Kirin Ichiban. Okay. And both of those, to this day, if I am having hot pot, if I'm having yakitori, Szechuan, I'm going to have a Sapporo. If they have it on draft, I'm going to have a Sapporo. It's a very, very nice, light, semi-sweet lager. It works really well with that spicy food. I'm just going to have a liter of it, because also it's going to be in a liter, which is fantastic.
Is Kirin the one that just bought Stone?
Yes.
Speaking of things that some people want to wring their hands about though, the macro place bought them out. But apparently, from what I understand, that if they hadn't been bought out, they probably would have had to close because they just overextended themselves so much. Yeah. All the places they went to, they were just in horrible debt, and so Kirin saved them.
Very cool. I mean, and also selling out, but also very cool.
Yeah. Yes. Now. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if either of you have had it at Kirin Ichiban.
I
believe so.
Yeah, I think I might have had it at a sushi place at some point or another.
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's sweet and light and refreshing alongside, at least in my memory, and like unremarkable enough to be remarkable. That kind of thing, where it was like it kind of fit exactly what I needed in that moment and nothing more.
So I am at this point done with my PBR extra tall boy, and
Good work.
I feel like I want to move on to something a little more. I don't know if I have the song cue ready for this one, but I did pull a little something from the Captain Cellar because I thought that would be a really exciting thing to preview something that I'm going to be doing very soon. So what I have got from Listerman Brewing Company called I Liked Listerman Before It Was Cool. This is a cake stout with angel food, cake, and vanilla. So not, as far as pastry stouts, not incredibly sweet, but some of those sweet things there. And this is a 14% ABV.
Oh, Captain!
Here
Captain,
we go.
you have outdone yourself.
Well, help me finish if we can't figure out how to land this thing. All right, so let's just pour this out. I brought it since we're being so people of the people. I decided to be moving to really snooty, and I've got a wine glass here.
Of course you do. I mean, well, it's coming directly out of the bottle and out of the cellar, and it is literally black gold.
Yes,
that
with
is
a very, very subtle head there.
Yeah. In fact, this one could be in an oil can. There's how that sound cue works. There's how that sound cue works.
Excellent. Just letting every drop drip out there.
Yeah, no, you don't waste any of this nonsense.
No, absolutely not. Let's get a little photo up here.
I mean, does it feel like it may be time for a palate cleanser?
Globe Hopper? I think so.
Okay, well, do you have a little something?
I do. Let me see here. I've got options, so let me see.
The Globe Hopper always comes prepared, which I always appreciate.
You know what? I'll go with. So, unless you want to go first.
No, please.
Okay.
You are the guest. You are the guest, but who's not really a guest. You're basically a regular, but you're kind
of.
You're
a beer venger, yeah.
I'm a
full-on beer venger.
So, I know we've talked about Allagash before, and everyone knows Allagash White. So I thought I would help them out a little bit because a lot of people don't realize that they also do dark beers very well.
Ooh.
And so this is one of my favorite seasonal beers, so I had to bring this one on. This is the Allagash Haunted House.
Ooh.
I know we're a little early into that season, but
it's okay.
It's time.
Yeah. So this is a hoppy dark ale. So there we go. Nice little crack.
Good one.
Yeah, Globe Hopper, I think that about a year ago,
That's gorgeous.
No, that is quite gorgeous. That's beautiful. Right before the Hazy Lady left town, when you and I were at Barcade in Brooklyn, I feel there was some dark Allagash beer that we were talking about, but I can't remember the name of it.
That was the Allagash Night Shift, I believe.
Right.
Or Night Sky, sorry. I apologize.
That was a really good one.
Doing my hook up right on the spot.
Perfect.
So that is the Allagash.
Honestly, with as much of we've had, there've been tall boys, and they're not. Yours weren't incredibly high ABV. Mine was not incredibly, but it was. I'm feeling it.
Just so you have this right there.
This is part of the show.
It is. Look, it's art, guys. We're doing a whole thing.
Yeah.
Oof.
Oh, I've got to find one of those. That looks great.
I know that actually does look really beautiful.
It's so good. You get the bitterness, but also the chocolatiness. It's just so good.
I think there need to be more of those. I mean, no disrespect to the Oktoberfest, aka Marzen, and the pumpkin beers that we all see out there, but haunted house, dark beers, I'm all for it. We need more of those.
Yeah.
Also, the pumpkins are back. It's September 1, and the pumpkins.
I haven't seen a lot of them yet. I believe you, but I haven't seen them.
I've already had one. I'm just
see. I knew that. I knew that about you, Globe Hopper.
Well, let's find out your beer first, and then I will let you know what I got.
Okay. Well, okay. So mine is, to the shock of no one, and also because I felt like we kind of had to do it, even on this episode, it is a
sponsored pour.
A sponsored pour from our friends at the Beer and Cheese Collective.
Excellent.
Yes, it is from Threes Brewing Company, which I know we have a fraught relationship with, but we're there. It is the Out of Focus Extra Special Bitter Ale.
Ooh.
Looking beautiful like this. I would like to describe to you the untapped tasting notes, just because I find them utterly delightful.
Yeah.
Orange marmalade, golden raisin, autumn honey, toasted English muffin, and shift beer.
All right. I think that's like a haiku, but it's too many syllables. But yeah,
it's a journey, is what I'm saying. Like that's like breakfast. It's just breakfast. Yeah, it's mostly a breakfast beer. So we're just gonna pop this one open and see how this looks. But I mean, it is definitely amber enough to fit that description. Decent head retention.
Really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I am definitely getting honey and raisin on the nose. Big fan.
Very nice. Beautiful beer.
All right.
Yeah, I am curious to find out what's happening with Threes and if that douchebag who said all those horrible things, what his deal is, if he's still making money from them and all that. So I didn't mean that to be too much of a monologue, but it seemed to become one.
No,
have you heard? Go ahead.
No, I think that's fair because haven't drank them for probably like 6 months now because of that. And I'll see them in the store and I'm like, should I? No, I'm going to go over here instead.
I know. I have walked past them. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And their distribution is certainly there, but I hope that, and I do hope that the staff is doing well because I know that staff was sort of separate from all of that. But that does not excuse the fact that while my beer does taste like fall, like honey and raisins and English muffins, the Globe Hopper has had our first pumpkin beer of the season, so we are gonna need to have the seasonal report.
So it is not your traditional pumpkin beer, because why would I? But it was actually our friends at Bronx Brewery. I'm just gonna give them a quick shout out. They have been killing it the past year.
Beer Wonder and I went to the new space in the East Village. It was great. I don't know if you've been there yet or not.
No, that space is fantastic. I was there a few weeks ago as well. It was a very lovely place. I had not there though, but I did have a can of their Tattooed Pumpkin, which is a pumpkin IPA. Probably the first pumpkin IPA I have ever had.
Okay, now you're talking.
As we know, usually a pumpkin is going to be a brown ale or a saison or something that has those spices to it. This was just enough pumpkin in the finish, but you had that IPA taste. So it was just a lovely beer, honestly. So yeah, that was my first pumpkin beer. I haven't gotten any of the pumpkin warlocks. I've held off on those.
Yeah. And now I need to know, was this so, because like it is September 1, so we are sort of like edging our way towards fall. We haven't hit Labor Day yet, so we can still wear white shoes, I hear. But I gotta know, when did you have this beer? Was this like mid-August? Like how early are we starting?
It was a couple weeks ago.
So it was like early August?
Yeah, mid-August.
You know, honestly, it's fair because the people want to get it out soon enough where they can sell a lot of it, but they also realize that once we hit November 1st, they can't sell it at all. No one wants it, so they have to get it out there soon enough to flood the market. I'm sorry. I'm a little overwhelmed with these beers I've had tonight. I know I said there was a reason I was pouring this beer. Did I say why? I don't remember if I did.
Okay. Me, so I don't know.
Okay, so if when I'm editing, I'll see if this all makes sense. If it all, I can piece it together.
Write drunk, edit sober. That's what they say.
I honestly,
right?
I think that's one of the beauties of this show that we drink real beer during it, and we accept whatever consequences come from that. This is from as I mentioned, this is from Listerman. It may not be that I think I've had this something from this brewery on the show. Anyway, Cincinnati Brewery, Southern Ohio. And in a couple of weeks, I will be heading to Dayton for the annual Golden Mile.
Oh, you did not mention that, but that is a sacred Beer Venger moment.
It truly is. And, you know, I'm not sure everyone knows the history of the Golden Mile. So I noticed recently, if anyone has HBO or HBO Max, which is essentially the same thing or whatever, that the movie The World's End is apparently on there. At least the last time I checked, it was. And that's where the title comes from. That's where it's about a bunch of friends getting together for a big pub crawl. But that will be happening on September 17th. And Beer Wonder, do you think we should have the Incredulous Bulk back on for a recap of that?
We will need a full recap
Yeah,
of the
okay.
experience in explicit detail, because
Yes.
that's what our listeners demand.
They do. All 10 or 20 of them. Or I'm sorry, all tens of them. Let's say all.
Yes, thank you.
There are literally tens of people are curious about
Yes,
this.
but most importantly, as you know, the aliens demand it.
Well, of course they do.
Yeah. And if we let down the interstellar beings that obviously listen to this beer cast, then like, what are we even doing?
Yeah. No, we really want to make sure they know where to go for a good beer when they finally decide to land. I mean,
Thank
really,
goodness.
experiencing the craft beer scene is, depending on your perspective, is a lot better than random anal penetration of hayseeds and yokels.
Well,
yeah, right. Whatever floats your boat. I'm not trying to downgrade that. If that's your thing, do it. But
why can't we have a little from column A and a little from column B? Is just what
you make
here.
a very good point there, Beer
Thank
Wonder.
you.
I think that we can have both. I think that we're in a world where it's we don't have to be so binary about the whole thing.
I know. Well, speaking of this is a hard transition, but it actually works in my head. Speaking of aliens with anal penetration and enjoying craft beer put together, I do want to talk briefly about my week in beer.
Oh, please.
Because we are going to get here, I promise. But I did have I mentioned, I've already teased this a little bit, but our dear friends at Coney Island Brewery did have an excellent drag show within their brewery, and it was the very first time I've ever been to a drag event at a brewery. It was a ton of fun. They are now doing it the last Saturday of every month going into the winter, so if you needed a reason to get yourself down to Coney Island, I mean, it's lovely, but also, well, okay, fine. But there's a great reason to go down to the brewery, because it's also like an early-ish drag show. It's like Saturdays at 5, so you can have a couple and then like have an evening after that. Okay. And they also have an excellent new Goza out there that is pirate themed. That I cannot recommend highly enough. I drank it all night and enjoyed it very much. But I did want to give a great shout out to our Coney Island Brewery friends for keeping the drag spirit alive, keeping the weird at Coney Island, and continuing to put out good beers. So the Coney Island brewery scene is going strong, and I felt like it needed to be mentioned.
Yeah, I need to. One of these days, especially since I'm going out and working in the world again. One of these days, I'm already at the bottom of Manhattan. So one of these days, when you're working at Coney Island and I'm working at the bottom of Manhattan, we need to get together and go to Coney Island Brewery.
Yeah. Well, this day will be passed, but September 3rd, they are doing a pint for a pint, meaning if you give them a pint of blood, they will give you a pint of beer. And let's just say, I get out of work at 5:45 down there, and it ends at 6. I am running down Surf Avenue to give my pint.
I would come down to join you, but apparently the Night Runner has invited me to his abode for a karaoke party that night.
Ooh, that is very exciting.
So clearly I have to go out, run out and buy a 6-pack of Founder's Porter so I can
naturally
at your local bodega. Empty-handed, yes. But hopefully sometime before the end of the month, you and I can figure out somewhere where our schedule meets up, and I can go down to Coney Island because I haven't been there in a while.
I know. Well, you're welcome anytime. Any reports for the Globe Hopper or the captain of our weekend beer?
Well, I want to hear, the last time we had Globe Hopper on here, I think we were premiering whatever, one of your homebrews, which is something you've been keeping up
wonderful.
with. Wonderful. Yes. In fact, I have a hard time when you send me one of your beers, give me one of your beers, I should say. I always want to make sure I have someone to share it with. And a couple of weeks ago, you said you're brewing a new one, and I'd had your last one in my refrigerator for a while. So I told the Belgian babe, we have to have the Globe Hopper's beer tonight because I have to give him the bottle back, which we did, and it was wonderful. And the other day, you and I met near. We met at Iconic Brewery. I don't know if we've had any of their beer on the show, but if not, we should. And then you and I went to. I gave you your bottle. so you could brew your beer. And then we went to the Baroness.
Yeah, which is a lovely place. It was
Vernon
the first time
Boulevard.
I had been there, and I know you've
Yeah.
mentioned them on the show before.
Yeah, they've only been in that location for about a year, I think.
Yeah. No, it's great beer. Good burgers as well, as you should have.
Important.
Very important.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I stuck it very simple. I think I had a Pilsner and a cream ale. Oddly enough, they both ended up being from Other Half, which was just what it was, which is fine.
Sure.
I mean, they make good beer. But yeah, I mean, I've been mostly at home brewing, which has been good times. So I did give you guys that one. That was an amber ale, I believe.
It was delicious.
It was it was technically an amber ale, but it was a little darker than what I usually
it was
an amber ale.
Yeah,
it was bold. It did its job. It did its job extremely
really
well.
good.
It showed up and performed, and I was proud. I gave it $1. I was pleased.
Yeah. So that one
slipped it right into the G string there, huh?
Yeah.
Boink. Yep.
So with that one, I know that one was a higher ABV, and that one is what actually prompted me to get an actual hydrometer. So now I know what my ABVs are. But yeah, no, I have 3. So I have one beer that I just finished brewing, and I actually just popped the first bottle last night. It is actually a gluten-free golden ale.
Oh, so exciting!
That was conditioned on honey, Hawaiian honey, because why not?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a Belgian golden strong ale, but it's a session golden strong ale, so I think those counteract, and that just goes down to a golden ale. It's like a 5% beer, but it is gluten-free, and so it is a very nice, lovely beer. I did not pop it on the show tonight because it is overly carbonated, and it went all over my kitchen. So
awkward.
That's why we don't do it on the show. But
so I do want to ask, what did you use as your fermentable or as your grain then to make it gluten-free beer?
Yep. So I stuck with Extract Brewing because I live in Brooklyn, and carrying 10 pounds of grain 6 floors up.
Hard pass.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. So it is extract. So it was sorghum extract with oat flakes and rice sugar. And then there was also some Belgian candy sugar in there. And then I conditioned it on Manuka honey as the priming sugar to create the carbonation. And it did its job very, very well.
Yeah,
I love that the Globe Hopper is brewing beers, keeping with his profile as far as like as international as possible. Like all sorts of continents are represented in the way you brew your beer.
Well, I do have some traditional ones. I do have a pale ale.
I mean, there's Caribbean, there's Asian. It's all in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's going to be some Asian in my next one. I have to bottle it. I just have to bottle it. And that one will actually have some Chinese 5-spice in it as well.
Oh, fun!
And then I just got a classic American IPA. You know, I just got that one.
Oh, you said that
fermenting
that little thing.
That little thing. He's just hanging out in the closet.
Yeah,
but he'll come out
doing his job.
Don't worry. Yeah.
Eventually, we'll get there. It's fine. Also, I will happily take a bottle of any of those. I was going to say, once the Globe Hopper opens a brewery, which I honestly just feel is the natural progression of this.
It's going to happen.
It's just what's about to happen, or at least starts working at a brewery. I will be there weekly, and if you're not drinking the Globe Hopper's beer, which you're not, you should at least DM us or send us an email or something, and we'll hook you up, because I feel like the challenge of brewing at home is that like you just have a lot of beer left over.
Yeah, and that's my problem I'm coming into, is that I have a bottled batch, a batch that needs to be bottled, and then I have another one fermenting. Which is a lot. That also for reference,
the trifecta.
And for reference for all of our listeners, this beer is getting to me.
You are a beer venger.
You're one of
a beer venger.
You can yes, yeah.
The
it doesn't matter how many.
hour.
Yeah.
You've been on this show. You may have been on this show more than Nutpool. Say what you will about Nutpool. Anyway, continue.
Say what you will.
Say what you will. But
honestly, though, this would have been the perfect episode for him if he were in town.
That's his loss. Anyway, you were saying.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent.
No, it's okay. Each batch is 2.5 gallons.
Woof.
So doesn't sound like a lot when you're brewing, but that's a lot you have to drink.
Yeah.
That's a lot of beer. So yeah, that's my problem. That's why
you're so good at sharing.
Yeah. Because I can't drink 2.5 gallons. Well, I shouldn't drink 2.5 gallons by myself.
You will if you need to.
I mean,
if it's required of you, it will happen.
That's fine.
Well, a beer venture steps up when asked. That's what we do.
Yes.
Of course.
All right. Well, I think either we've come to the end of the thing, or I'm just nowhere where I.
Well, I mean,
anything else we need to talk about here?
Well, I mean, I just do want to mention that if you're not following the Beer Vengers on Instagram, the Wandering Huck found himself in Baltimore.
Oh yeah, that was the great stuff on there.
For reasons that we really can't talk about because we don't want to out the specifics of our dear cider girl. But they did engage with our dear friends at City Brew Tours and their Baltimore location and seemed to have a really good time.
I think they saw some exotic animals while they were there too. But
just 1 or 2 or 5 or 20.
Yeah.
So if you're not following us on the gram, get over there because there's good beer to be found in Baltimore and an excellent field report from our dear Huck,
who will be back on hopefully the next episode to tell us all about it.
Exactly. We need the report from the field.
Yeah, I mean he's on this episode singing, but his lack of a spectral presence means that's all he can do this week. But he will. Did I say that right? I'm not even sure what that meant. What I just said.
That's perfect.
We're just gonna let it sit.
Excellent. This is a beer podcast, so that's all fine. Anything else we need to cover before the Spectral Huck plays us out?
Tip your bartenders.
Tip your bartenders, absolutely. And thanks everyone for listening. It's been wonderful having you here. Hope you found something interesting here, and hope we will be seeing you all in the future. And now I think that's the end of the show, and Huck is going to play us out.
With the beer Vengers, beer Vengers, beer Vengers.
We're the Beer Vengers.